Hello and welcome to Europe Now. This month we're here in Brussels, in Belgium, the centre of the European project, the home of the European Parliament. As well as meeting with a whole host of Belgian MEPs, we'll be taking a look at how the European project really affects on an everyday level the lives of many Belgian people. 1 year on from the Brussels attacks, we'll also be taking a look at how theatre is on the front line against radicalisation. But first we start the show here in Brussels, where the European institutions cast a long shadow. Our reporter Anaïs Guérard went to see how the European diplomats and the residents of the Belgian capital coexist, for better or for worse.
For taxi drivers like Didier, Brussels Midi train station is great for picking up European VIPs. It's the main and most practical access to Europe's capital. Over the past 15 years, taxi drivers have seen the profile of their clients change. 70% are now lobbyists and European officials.
Business-wise, it's pretty simple. We know when a parliament is in session here and not in Strasbourg.
Because when the EU Brussels Parliament is not in session, the streets in the European district are almost empty. For this Brussels architect, the EU buildings are an eyesore in the historic neighborhood.
Many of these buildings are not connected to the rest of the city. They're detached, built according to specific architectural strategies that keep them separated from the local population. They're like fortresses keeping the city at a distance.
Since Brussels became the capital of Europe and not just Belgium, its longtime residents have also seen prices soar.
What we've experienced here is a massive price hike in real estate. It would be unthinkable to buy a house like mine for the price I paid for it 30 years ago.
But there are also positive aspects. The region of Brussels is the fourth wealthiest in the EU. Its GDP per capita is twice the European average. Among those thrilled to welcome Europe's 22,000 technocrats and lobbyists of all sorts, Brussels businesses and restaurants.
If they disappeared, the effect on our turnover would be immediate and painful. Since the European neighbourhood was set up, many businesses have opened. The neighbourhood has changed. Our business is thriving largely due to them.
They stimulate the economy, but do these European functionaries integrate into Belgian life? Let's meet them and find out. Thursday night on Luxembourg Square, right next to the European Parliament.
We have our own expressions. Are you Luxing tonight? That's a way of asking if someone's going to Luxembourg Square. We come here every Thursday night. It's become a habit. We don't even have to spell it out. We're always here. 9 out of 10 people here work for a European institution. It's a European bubble.
It's both good and bad. You shouldn't stay here, because if you do, you don't learn much about Belgium, or even Brussels. It's pretty limited.
Here we're in Europe, not in Brussels.
35% of people who live in Brussels are foreign. Many of them like to believe that you don't have to be from Belgium to love its capital.
We've come to the nerve centre of the European institutions to meet with Hilde Vautmans, the Liberal Belgian MEP. Thanks so much for joining us here today. And I want to talk about really the perception Belgians have of the European Union itself. They've got all of these European institutions on their doorstep. Do they have the same idea as many Europeans that the European project is very distant?
We are very glad that we have the institutions here because it creates jobs, employment. It's very important for Brussels as the capital of Europe. But for the citizens elsewhere in Belgium, it's the same problem as in other countries. They don't really feel Europe. I think Europe should explain much better what we are doing for the people. And we should reform Europe. I think if we really want to convince the people of the European project, we really have to create a European Defence Union. We have to tackle the problem of terrorism. We have to tackle the problem of the migration crisis. So I think Europe should really be more strong. We need a real government, European government. Now we have a commission with 28 commissioners. We have to decide by all 28, it doesn't work anymore. We should be more flexible, more attacking the problems the people face.
Well, that's kind of the problems that people face. But here in Belgium, there is a huge benefit, especially in Brussels, from having the European institutions based here. Do you think that Belgian people, they appreciate that fact?
I really think that Belgium and Brussels, we are very glad that we are the capital of Europe, that we have the institutions here, because it gives us a great benefit. I don't know if people know that, but we are the diplomatic capital of the whole world. We have the most ambassadors here in Brussels, more than New York, more than Washington. So it's great to have that here for the jobs, the hotels, the restaurants.
Europe is very much at a turning point, given, of course, all the crises that Europe's facing, but also particularly the issue of Brexit. Do you think that in many ways Brussels and Belgium can consolidate even more power as perhaps some of the bigger countries are less involved?
Yeah, of course, and you see that a lot of institutions want to leave London. I can only say, well, they can come to Brussels. We will welcome them with open arms because we have a lot of institutions. We have everything here. So I really hope that if they leave London, they will come to the capital of Europe. But that's, of course, the Belgium in me that talks then. But with the Brexit, let me be honest, I was against the Brexit. I would have preferred if they would stay within the European Union. But they decided to leave. But now we have to use this moment to reform Europe. We really should need to take this moment and grab it and really say, okay, what shall we do? When you leave, okay, but what will we do to reform, to be more performant for the people? And that's what I really ask for here in the Parliament.
So that all sounds somewhat abstract. Let's go and take a look at how European diplomacy has an effect on Belgian people in your home region.
Yeah, let's go.
So we're meeting up again with Hilde Vautmans, the European MEP in her hometown, the town of Sint-Truiden, which is in the Flemish-speaking area. Tell us more about the differences between the Flemish-speaking area here, where we are, and the French-speaking Wallonia area, which is very close. It has been a question of great divisions in Belgium.
Well, it's a certain political party, the N-VA, who really wants to tell to people like if we're enemies, Flanders and Walloon. But it's not like that. Here in Sint-Truiden, we don't feel it. We're very close by the border. Actually, the Walloon, the French-speaking Walloon area, they're our neighbors. We have a very good relationship with them. So it's only one political party who really wants to tell the people like if we're enemies. The other political party, we defend Belgium. We defend a strong Belgium and a strong Europe.
You're giving quite a utopian ideal there of Belgium, but it has been a question that has pushed the Kingdom of Belgium towards almost two separate states in the past couple of years. Have we turned the page on that era?
Yeah, I think so. I think we really have a very difficult political model in Belgium. We are the king of the compromises. And so the political model we made for that is very difficult, but it works. So we are an example, I think, for a lot of other countries.
This is, though, an area, a fruit-producing area that's been very badly hit by the boycott and the sanctions with Russia over the Ukraine conflict. Is that price worth paying?
Well, of course, that's the big question, I must say. Here in Sint-Truiden, 60% of all the pears went straight away to Russia. So the ban, we really feel it here in this town. And that's why I ask in the European Parliament two things. First, we have to give compensations to the farmers who are hit. If Putin would have decided to a ban of the cars of Germany, the ban would have been lifted because Angela Merkel would have been to Russia to ask for the lifting of the ban. And secondly, I also ask for another strategy towards Russia. I think like we're doing now, sanctions, again sanctions, but nothing is changing. The conflict with Ukraine is not ending. So I think we have to have another relationship with Putin. We should talk to Russia. We should politically, economically have other relationship with Putin. I'm really convinced that Russia is really a big neighboring country. One way or another, we should find a way to react on everything that's happening in the world. It's the same thing with the election of Trump in America. Everything has changed since his election. So we really should rethink what's the position of Europe. And for me, Europe needs to be stronger. We have to be stronger in economically and foreign affairs to defend our position better. If we all fight together, we have 500 million people in Europe, we can do better things than that you're doing now.
Product here in Belgium that is not having any real problems being exported is Belgian beer. Indeed, it's been put on the UNESCO World Heritage list. Our reporter Anaïs Gerard went to see just how seriously the Belgians take their beer.
Below these roofs lies a part of Belgium's cultural heritage. This is the home of one of the country's favourite beers, Prosperous.
Here we're brewing our beer. For us, it's important to stay in Bruges because we've been brewing here for more than 150 years.
And to stay in the historical centre of Bruges, they've come up with an innovative solution.
The beer is pumped into these tanks before it goes underground through these pipes.
The beer is then funneled through 3 kilometres of pipeline. It ends up in a bottling plant on the outskirts of the city.
So approximately a day, it arrives 50,000 or 60,000 litres a day, and we store them in one of the 16 tanks here to yeast out or to clarify the beer, so we can easily filtrate it.
The delivery is entirely automated, streamlining the production process. It also means that dozens of lorries will no longer have to pass through the city's narrow streets.
Here we're walking through one of the little alleyways that crisscrosses Bruges. The beer pipeline is under our feet. We're just next to the tourist center, or the Golden Triangle, as we call it.
Bruges is soaked in history. The city is a UNESCO World Heritage Site not just for its architecture, but also its beer. For the owners of the Prosperous brewery, moving the site out of the historic centre was unthinkable. The beer pipeline didn't come cheap. Its price tag was around €4 million, but the public also chipped in.
When we first came up with the idea of a beer pipeline, people said, "Oh, we'd love to have our own beer on tap that we can get directly from the pipeline."
They won't have their own beer on tap, but the people of Bruges now own part of the pipeline. Thanks to crowdfunding, participants managed to raise €300,000. As a result, those who donated are entitled to a beer or two on the house. One of them is Philippe.
It's tough to come and drink a beer every day.
I was keen, but my wife didn't agree.
Philippe owns a restaurant a stone's throw away from the brewery. Prosperous is one of his clients' most popular drinks.
As you can see, most of the beers come from the brewery right here in Bruges, where Prosperous is brewed.
And once his work's finished for the day, he likes nothing better than to relax with his colleagues, beer in hand.
And we're continuing our tour of Belgium. We've come here to Gooik and we are meeting with Bart Staes, a Green MEP. Thanks so much for joining us.
Nice to meet you.
You've brought us to this organic farm, and it has to be said there is a difference between the Flemish-speaking northern Flanders in Belgium, which is very much more industrial farming, and the difference between the French-speaking Wallonia area of the south. What explains the difference in approaches there?
Absolutely. Well, there is a difference because of different lobbies and different systems of education and a different approach of the governments. The Flemish government is really pushing into intensive farming, into export-oriented farming, and there is a difference in political cultures.
Thinking of Belgium as a whole, when it comes to organic farming, it's in the EU average at about 4% of total farming, but that's far behind some of the leaders such as Austria, where it's closer to 19%. Why is Belgium so far behind those leaders on organic farming?
I think there are many reasons. One of the reasons is education. The young pupils are sent into the old system and do not see the alternatives. And we are at a moment of transition whereby we are behind other countries, that is for sure. But in that moment of transition, more and more young farmers do choose organic farming, do choose also the model of direct relations with the consumers, which is interesting as well, because then the consumers see where food is coming from.
In 2009 we took over the farm from my aunt, and our idea was we were more into organic farming. We get some grants from Europe. In the beginning it's quite a lot, so that's a big help and you need that.
On a European level, over the past 15 years, the space, the land dedicated to organic farming has doubled to almost 11 million hectares. That's a pretty good success story from the EU. What more can be done?
Well, I think we have to change the common agricultural system, whereby we see that now all subsidies coming from Europe are really going to the big farmers, to the big industries, and are not dedicated and are not driven towards those who want to go for a transition into a more green agriculture, a more labor-friendly agriculture as well, whereby people can earn their lives. I think that is the most important thing.
We've been talking a lot in the show about how Belgium is at the centre of the European project. How do you think your fellow Belgians perceive the European Union in 2017?
Well, I think that still a majority of Belgians do see that the European Union can solve the big problems of the future. They know that we need to work together as European countries to save our future on climate change, on tax evasion policy, on immigration. These are all policies where we need to work together, and that is what it is about.
Bart Staes, thanks so much for your time. That's all we've got time for in this half of the show. Join us after the news for our second part of the show, taking a closer look at Belgium in Europe now.